Hi, I'm Heather Laux, and I'm here with Phaeryn Sheehan, the Ascended Masters Foundation channel. And I want her to tell us about her life so that anybody could have an idea of how your life can change so beautifully, and to help other people with that. So I'm going to just ask her some questions. The questions I usually ask everyone, and I just want to talk. I want to know more about how you got to be this wonderful channel for the Ascended Masters Foundation that I get to staff now. That's so lovely.
It is.
Yes. And I want people to know about you, know how wonderful the programs are, and how you got here. So maybe you could start there. How you got here.
Well, it really means a lot to me that you want to. I think anybody feels that way when somebody asks you that question. You're so wonderful, and how'd you get that way? You can't, that's pretty delectable. But I do, Heather, have a pitch that's really sincere. Mainly because I would love to make it easier for people. I did it coming into my own work in resistance, right? But it was that I just wasn't aware of what was really going on, and it frightened me. So I'm going to be more specific. I was raised in a Irish background, American Irish. And a lot of times the Irish are seers, tend to be that way. It runs in the blood, so to say, amongst other things. And so my parents had a really wonderful way of demonstrating how much they loved the divine, or they would say how much they loved Jesus, or how much they were devoted to God. And they weren't so interested in the Catholic Church or churches per se, though respectful. But this seership, this seer, intuitive, wasn't that word really I had no awareness of, but it lurked in my family, especially on the Irish line of my mother, right? And so I think I've told you the story of I used to be able as a child not to so much see things physically, but like an inner eye. I kind of could intuitive what was really going on. And I was distressed about it. I thought something was really the matter with me. So and my mother said, guess what? We need to take you to the eye doctor and get glasses. I'm so sorry. My original name was Judith. Judith, I'm so sorry, but, it will help if you have glasses. Well, inside of me, that was like good news, because I said, oh, that means I won't have those inner sightings, those inner experiences. So I'm like 6 years old, jumping up into the chair. The optometrist is really nice, and he puts the glasses on me, and it didn't take those, right? So that was my first experience in knowing that something was awry that I didn't have any control over. But it didn't really show up because, our society helps us not realize those awarenesses, those really raw gifts. But when I was around 40, 42 or so, I started realizing that something was like unfolding that I had no understanding of. Like I would have those experiences, like prophetic experiences. I would imagine something happening and then it would happen. Not that that's like we all, really have that, but it got to be for other people as well. I would feel so deeply for someone who, actually I'd feel more deeply for a person's upset than they would, right?
I know that feeling.
What I'm talking about, right? so I was trying really hard not to let that part of me take me over, because what would I have done, right? Well, I got very good at different kinds of work, and I would go with certain companies, but the company would fold, right? So I'd maybe have 6 months to a year with the company and really work hard and really be doing well, like being in the world, like not whatever else could happen, and then they would fold. So unfortunately, my parents passed, and they passed pretty close to each other, and they left some money. And so I thought, I'll do something really artful. I'll buy an interior design business. The worst thing I could have done, you know, but the best thing I could have done, because one Christmas party, one of my designers brought this lovely woman guest by the name of Ayana Linda Day, and he whispered to me. He said, "She's a channel. She's a, she's a spirit channel."
Did you know what that meant?
I kind of thought, oh, it's one of those things that you shouldn't do, or it's kind of wicked stuff.
Intriguing.
Right, and it's gonna, it could be dangerous because you're working with those spirits, so. But she was so beautiful. She was blonde, but her energy was blonde. She was joyful. Her laughter was like ringing, and she was open and not, supposedly important. And so my boyfriend said, well, I'm going to go have a spiritual reading. I was going to think about it. Well, when he said he was going to have one already, I'm going to have one too. And that is when everything started to, I just want to say this right, to reveal itself to me. It felt like this beautiful force of love that all of the priests and nuns and ministers had talked about, everything that the Bible had talked about, came alive. And when something that momentous happens to you, it takes days. I mean, you can't really process it. And of course, because I shouldn't have been an owner of that business, things got worse, right? But I had this little cassette tape, and I listened to it, and I listened to it. I mean, I repaired it. It broke 3 more times. I repaired it until I could, I could rehearse it, or I could repeat it. And then I began to take her coursework, and I began to realize that this aspect of me was more than just an experience. And I think that's what I really want to say to everyone to know about, is that our society often doesn't give us the awareness of, and that is that we're called. We're called by the very spirit within ourselves and the spirit of all that is. It's a calling. Yes. And every one of us has a calling. Mm. But in order to hear that calling, you have to get quiet.
Yes.
And I was not easily moved into quiet. And so Ayana, one of those evenings, those wonderful, relaxing and meditative evenings, she said to everyone, she said, I think there's someone here in this room who is to move up and be in the mountains with me and study under me. Whoa. And I went, oh, I know who that is. That's so-and-so. I mean, she'd be perfect after all. She's so advanced. And, well, you can hear in my voice, guess what? It was me, right? Mm. And I was, in a particular way, devastated, because everything that I'd hoped that I could do otherwise, other than my calling, just absolutely evaporated. It was clear to me that if I was the one that was to go to the mountains and study with her, that I most likely was either going to work with her and be a channel, or I was going to replace her. Oof. You
Big.
know, that is just, you know, there it was. And the hardest thing was I had to have my daughter go and live with her dad,
Yeah.
which I'm eternally grateful to her for. So that's a long, I don't know if you wanted me to go on.
Oh,
but-
yes, I think it's important to have that knowing of your calling and the resistance to it and not the freedom to express yourself. Yeah, and I think we all have that too. And our minds are so busy now. And we have so much to do in the world, you know, just to keep our head afloat, you know. So I think this is important for people to know that, yeah, you can be in the most dire straits and everything can seem like it's falling apart, but it's actually to get you on your path.
And that's dead on. You know, it's dead on. I also add to that, all the time I can admit that underneath trying to please people, trying to do what's right, avoid getting scared when I didn't know what to do with this giftedness that we all have in our own way. Underneath it all, one ability or personal attribute I feel we have is a desire, a really strong, like a very raw and primal desire to become who we are, to really, really become who we are.
Yes. And be loved.
Yes.
And love.
Yes.
In that. Being that love that we naturally are when we're born, and that we get kind of taken off our road, taken off our pathway.
Right. And you really love yourself when you're loyal to yourself
Yes.
that way.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's where I think any time that we can tap into that, we have a huge chance for that calling
Yes.
to happen, you know. And I want you all to know it's not about some voice comes through the clouds. It's from here. You know, there's this this presence of ourselves that's urging us, that's reminding us, choose this way.
Yes.
You know, you're better at doing this.
Yeah, walk this way.
Yeah.
It's the best step.
Right. Right. Take that step, even
Yeah.
though it's difficult.
Yep.
All the help will come
Yes.
if you're really, really honest about what you really long for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Very tender. Very, very, it's almost like you're witnessing I don't know, such a tender, vulnerable thing. It's so pristine and perfect, and
Yes.
when somebody's in their calling, you're just naturally magnetized to them, naturally,
That's a very good point.
and people kind of wake up
Yeah.
around them too.
Yes.
And it's very lovely how that just like the repercussions. I know the shamans in Peru and Ecuador that I've studied with, they always talk about the repercussions of whatever we do.
Yes.
You know, it just goes out into the universe.
Yes.
It just goes out and changes everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then what comes back to you is all of that plus some. You know, it just comes back.
Yeah, and another thing that you're pointing to is you think that you can't do it because you can't see it,
Yes.
right? You haven't done it before, and
No senses. The senses aren't there.
right.
Yeah.
You don't have the experience. You just like that. But the irony is when you do what you're meant to do, there is a natural ability that sort of rises up within you, and so you really dance with it. Like being in the front of the room of a large amount of people was such a challenge, but as soon as I answered that calling or embraced that calling, I was absolutely at ease, right?
And don't we all want that? We want to be at
Yeah,
ease.
that's means more than anything.
Yeah,
right?
we do. We want to be okay in our own skin
Yeah.
and doing what we do. We
And you
wanna
don't
be-
have to work so hard at pleasing people,
No.
because the gift is operating you. You
Yes.
know, It's really operating you. It's moving you here. It's giving you information. It's bringing you people. It's,
Blessings.
yes.
Like
yes.
my pool today.
Like your pool today.
Like my little pool today.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Maybe we could talk about the Ascended Masters Foundation.
Sure.
Because I think they have wonderful programs. We have wonderful
That's
programs.
right.
And you can come into it at any time in your life, really, and from different avenues. There's always a program for someone. Maybe talk about the programs.
Sure. You know, Ayana didn't mean to be a channel like myself. However, she surrendered to that, she opened to that, to ascended consciousness, to ascended beingness, that asked if she would open up to being a conduit, a speaking conduit. And she was guided to found a foundation where that foundation would host them as channeled, ascended, and also angelic force fields. I think I want to say, because it's really delightful to be here and to be able to share this. There are so many ways that you can open up and awaken.
Yes.
I found drawn to Ayana and receiving messages and connections with the Ascended Masters because I realized that every one of us as human beings really need help. Now, we can be very capable and cogent and everything else in the world, but when it comes down to becoming who we really are and finding that out, really,
It's difficult.
we really need divine assistance.
We do. We don't know all of that.
Right.
We only know what we know.
The other thing is that our calling is usually it is always a calling that we could never do on our own. I could never, ever, ever be that conduit for the Ascended Masters on my own. But in their assistance, that divine assistance, then it has happened, right? So 30 years ago or so, we were founded, and it was such an amazing phenomenon because we were receiving such amazing healings, awarenesses that immediately caused healings.
Yes. That's, I think, the best part of it, the healing our woundedness, because we're all so traumatized, especially by the news and, even things from our own childhoods or our neighbors' childhoods, our family inheritance of different things. I think it's so helpful to have a hope of healing that.
Yes. And to have the hope, because it gets to a place after a while
Where we're hopeless.
why should there be, how could you feel really hopeful?
Yeah.
There's no real input that gives you a sense.
Yeah. We're surrounded by things that are negative and critical and criticism, and even in our own minds. Yes, I work on that every day.
Yes.
But that, just to bring that glimmer of light, of hope, is so, I know it was so important to me. I know when I met you 9 years ago at Susie Barron's house, our director of the Northeast, that beautiful girl, I couldn't not come. I knew it was to be for the rest of my life. I knew I had to be associated with it because the same words came, the same energies came. I was so comfortable there. It was so my family. They were my peeps. They're my tribe, my clan. And so I just want to share that. And I love that. I think people have to find their tribe.
Yes.
And there's so many ways. And I love that too about the masters, how they say, we're in various places. We're in thousands of places.
Yes.
This is just one of the places where you can get what you need.
Yes.
If it resonates with you.
Yes.
If it feels right for you.
Yes.
And maybe we should be a little more pushy, but I don't think so.
No.
I think I like the way we are.
Yeah.
You know, we invite people, and if
Yeah.
they want to come, yes. And there's always lots of free orientations
Yes.
and introductions
Yes.
to come to, so
Yes,
they can
every month.
try
there's
it
2 or
out.
3 of them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you come to an orientation, you feel the energy of the channeled presence. You also realize that you don't have to do anything that isn't what you really are feeling in that
Yes.
moment that you
Yes.
know that you want to do. So some individuals come and they're right then and there. In that orientation, they've gotten the awareness they need. They're extremely grateful. It has shifted them, and on they go. Other individuals, like myself, I was in a lot of fear, so I needed to kind of be in this space of divine loving that didn't have expectation.
That acceptance.
Yes,
That
acceptance.
unconditional acceptance.
Yes.
Of where you're at and who you are.
Right.
What they always say, if I remember this correctly, those energies of resistance
Mhm.
are just to be healed.
Right.
They're just waiting to be healed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
What a lovely, simple idea.
Mhm.
It's just waiting to be healed.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
No big deal.
I think too that you get the awareness for yourself of what you need rather
Mhm.
than these perhaps we would be frightened of dominating beings telling us what we needed to do.
Yes. Yes.
So you awaken to what you know is your awareness of what you're in the midst of awakening to, or circumstances you're going through, challenges you're going through, and it comes to you in that space, those events, right? And some people have come to events a whole year, once a month, and they've never decided to go into a program, and they might continue. Other individuals, before they even come, decide. They can feel that they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
So there is not anything that these ascended beings have in their mind that we should do.
No.
They are giving us a chance to find out within our soul what it is that's revealing itself to our human self.
Yes, and I love that they were embodied.
Yes.
So they've known
Good
what a
point.
human life is
Absolutely.
like,
Yes.
and can give us.
They're more trustworthy.
Yes, I believe that.
Yes.
Because we kind of get changed when we're here
Yes.
on the earth, and our thinking gets changed, and just how we are gets changed.
Yes.
And I think it brings us back to who we really are, how we were originally designed as.
Yes.
Yes. Our human nature, our pristine, beautiful nature.
Right.
Our beautiful miracle nature.
Right.
I think we're all born that way.
Yes. I think also we begin to have compassion for our caretakers who really didn't know what they were doing.
Yes.
Whereas a lot of the time we can get really stuck in resentment
Of course.
and bitterness
Mm-hmm.
and,
Yes, we can.
behaving entitled because we feel like we haven't gotten ours. There's a lot of those mindsets that we all have in our own way, and in this energy field of spiritual practice, and I guess I could say they are teachings of divine universal law truth.
Oh, the laws of love.
Yeah, the laws, the universal
I call
laws
them the laws of love,
That's
and
right.
they just fill me up.
Yes.
Because they apply to everything. Everything. And they give you guidelines of how to proceed, which I don't think we have. I mean, we have it in our Constitution of the United States, and this is the best country in the world, I think, still.
Mhm.
But they give you those guidelines.
That's right. Right. And you discover that you discover them from within.
Yes.
You know, it dawns on you that you have inner wisdom.
Yes.
And
that's the
inner
best
compassion.
present. That is such a great present.
And
Because we think so badly of ourselves all the
yes,
time.
I would say that's where they major the most healing.
Yes.
in, don't you?
Yes, I
Don't you
do.
think?
I do. Absolutely.
Right.
The
I'm
healings.
so glad you share how much this means to
Oh,
you.
well, it's changed my life. I was very wounded, and I'm an empath, so I had a lot of feelings and things that I didn't know where they came from. You know, I feel sadness or just different things that I thought were mine,
Yeah.
and they weren't. And when they give me when we go through intensives, which you might say that you do spiritual channelings
Sure.
privately, one-on-one.
Sure.
That has helped me immensely. I don't know if I'd be here without that.
Mm-hmm.
And the intensive we just went through was just amazing. Yeah, that was just amazing. And
You heard your calling.
I'm so grateful. Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Yes.
It's just so grateful.
Yes.
And I want everybody to have what they came here for. You know, be who they are. Love their life.
Yeah.
Love who they are.
I think a lot of suffering is happening because that isn't very easy to.
No.
It is. Our society tells us that this, and this little arena is where you can go and find some money and safety and so forth. But it doesn't show us this calling that is our destiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you could summarize, let's just summarize and complete here.
All right.
What would you think would be your gift to people who are watching?
Oh, what a question.
Did I put you on the spot?
I like
Finally,
being on the
after all
spot.
these
No,
years?
I've been on the spot. Don't worry
How
about
exciting.
that. I've been on the spot all the time, it seems. Well, I would love to be able to contribute. If you sense, what Heather has introduced and you sense in the way I am introduced or speaking, that you could trust that I would be sourceful for you on your awakening, in your awakening. I would welcome you. I am fortunate enough to not have a job. I get to do this all the time. This is like living your vacation as your work. Not that I don't barely work. I do spend my whole days in this. But it would be wonderful if you would consider being in connection with your spirit guide in an actual divine conversation. It's channeled. So, it is channeled is different than an immediate, a miraculous spiritual awakening. I'm sure some of you've had. That a lot of people like Heather have gotten the real reason she embodied by having a connection to her spiritual guide, ascended or angelic, or sometimes who comes through channels is one of your ancestors. Or if you're asking to be connected to one of your ancestors and that ancestor is ready, then that can also happen too. And that means a lot to us, that we can have those connections.
Yes, our lineage, our heritage.
Right.
Yeah.
And that you don't have to do it alone. It doesn't work. It
Such
just,
a relief.
Yeah, and it shouldn't have been taught to us that way anyway, right? So that's the best I can say.
That's pretty good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Phaeryn,
You're welcome.
for being on the show.
Yeah, this is really
being in the
fun.
flow.
Yes,
It's being in the flow.
that's right.
Being in, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.